This is Monday, November 28th, 2016. It's 4:30 p.m. We're in the Thomas J. Smith Council Chambers. This is our work session. We're going to start tonight with discussion items first, and then we'll back ourselves up, so that way we could let you guys get out of here and get to your business. Tonight first, we will talk about the covered swimming pool. Come on, Dan.
You want us to say our names and
Please.
John Freeling,
Michelle Abouasling.
and we're, I guess, here for two reasons. One, to ask for permission to do an engineering study on the banquet pool so that a structure could be built that would be used from September to May and then be taken down every year and it'd still be an outdoor pool in the summer. But in order to finalize or get the project put together, there needs to be an engineering study done on the pool to see what this is gonna cost exactly. And we have somebody that's willing to pay the cost of $10,000 to have that study done, but we need your permission and kind of encouragement to have that done. Any questions? Sounds simple.
Nothing
Well-
from the little guy over there? You got nothing you want to throw in there, or?
Can you tell me what the idea is behind this whole project and how this all got started and all this?
Sure. We were approached by a well-known coach wanting to do a year-round program. So in order to, and honestly, when she found out that we had a 50-meter heated pool, I don't think we or realized what we were sitting on, what a gem this is. This is rare, kind of rare. Other communities have 50-meter pools, but they're not heated, and there's not a possibility of putting a structure over it. So once we found that out, and for a relatively low cost compared to building a brand new pool and whatnot, it seems like it's pretty feasible. It's a year right now. We currently have a Y swim program
Right.
that runs November to March. And this would allow kids to continue with the Y program, but be able to swim year round, as in, with other sports as well, that they do have the clubs and whatnot that are able to play year round. This would give our kids the ability to swim year round, that many other communities do. And we can see in our high school programs, I think, we're the different teams that we swim against all have year round programs, and we don't here in Burlington. So this would give our kids opportunity, and improve our high school programs as well.
And there are people that would actually travel to Burlington to practice in the wintertime here rather than people that go other places, believe it or not.
What do people do now?
Go to Cedar Rapids, Quincy, Iowa City. Whereas if we were to have this facility in the winter, people would come here.
And the
Build it.
idea would be for people to travel to Burlington rather than all the people in Burlington traveling to these other communities.
So right now, there'd be the Y and the high school pool, and we can't work something out to make this work for us?
Currently, we cannot swim, we can't competitively swim in the Y pool. It's not up to code for
Okay.
diving.
Yeah.
Our Y practices actually are at the high school. And the Y pool is used for lap swim and lessons.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And in the summer, it's called the long course season. And so there's 50-meter pool to swimmers is a big deal.
Yeah. I believe that, yeah.
And we worked out the expense side of things once the thing is up as far as,
That's part of the reason for the study is to nail those costs down. We're a little more comfortable with the ongoing expense of operating the pool and the facility year-round rather than a few months out of the year. The initial cost, that's what this study will tell us, is exactly
Okay.
what the structure would cost.
Good.
And then at that point, we could kind of start figuring out how to pay for the whole thing. So,
Have you had discussions with Eric?
yes,
Okay.
and Brad Selby both.
And Brad? Yeah.
It's right in line with, as far as I'm concerned, it's right in line with part of our goals set up to be, they want Burlington to kind of be the sports hub of this area, and that would fall right in line with that. I think it's a fantastic idea. It makes me want to swim again.
And there are a lot of different, there's all different kinds of programs. I know Team Beast, is very interested in also the use of, year-round use of a pool. There's all kinds of different programming. That there can be master swimming for, adults who want to swim competitively. There's masters programs. The idea would be that we'd have swim meets, that would bring a lot of people to Burlington. So there are a lot of uses for the facility.
I think it sounds great.
Eric, as you and Brad have talked about this, what have been the concerns or things that you've brought up?
I think some of the concerns, as we talked about when we met, was just we have an unconditioned pool house, putting a dome over the pool. How do you serve that then with restrooms and locker rooms and such in an unconditioned area? What's the cost to do that? And then just the operational cost of maintaining the pool house and the extra cost for heating the pool in the wintertime. And those are things we met or discussed when we met with them, is how do we determine or factor those costs in. They have some great ideas on covering costs, but what are those costs that we need to cover is our
Yeah.
question, so.
Good questions. Yeah.
And a lot of that would get answered, though, with the study. then.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
This
that's-
is kind of the next logical step
Yeah.
in that process.
One question with the study, was it just the cover of the pool, or was it also maybe conditioning some of the space in the pool house, or how
Yeah,
that gets
that was
maintained?
We intend to nail down all of those costs.
It's gonna be
as best
my
we can.
question too. Yeah, good, good. I see no reason not to go for it.
Yeah, sounds great.
I mean, if
Let's do
if we spend all that money on that pool anyway, we might as well make it usable, in my view,
Yeah.
I love it.
if it's financially feasible.
Yeah, I guess the concern is to make sure that we're not putting an additional cost on the city. Eric's other part there is, as he's asking about those additional costs for operating it in the winter, how feasible is that facility to be heated? Not just what would it cost, but how feasible is it? Would there be alterations needed, not just for the pool itself, but for the building that's attached to be able to be used so that can be accomplished? At this point, from a staff perspective, I think that you've been favorable to see this move forward and see what can be accomplished, because there's some neat additions. It's just making sure that
Yeah.
we're thinking about all the different items that are necessary to make sure that you can actually afford to do it.
Right on.
I personally would applaud you for your efforts. Thank you. Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. Next time you come with somebody prettier. Freeling, she's started to deteriorate, you know what I mean? No, I think it's awesome. I do. Fantastic, fantastic.
Great.
You guys got any other questions for him?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming
Thanks.
down.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, our second discussion item will be a presentation, RSVP and Transportation Program. Mary Main. Thanks again for coming down, guys.
I'm Mary Main. I've been the coordinator for a little over 5 years, and Shane asked me to speak and let you people know what goes on downstairs in the office. I gave you printed material because some of this information goes in and out of people's minds quickly, and I can't speak clearly enough that it would make an impact. So the first sheet just says that part of our RSVP, the Medical Transportation Program, was established in 2005, and it has really served well for people that can no longer drive, are too frail, they can't use public systems, whatever. And we've got about 15 volunteer drivers right now that pick the clients up at their residence, help them to their car, assist them with their medical appointment, bring them home safely inside. And we pay them 45 cents a mile. The statistics for the last fiscal year, the volunteer drivers drove over 10,000 miles and served 1,233 hours. They made 766 trips. At that time, we had 22 volunteers, and we served 94 different clients during that time. The second item is the newsletter that just went out a couple weeks ago. And the reason I shared that with you is that on the back side, a word of thanks to our drivers. We get thanks every day saying they don't know what they would do without this program. And thank you to the drivers. But this gal, Lisa Hart, says, I have been blessed to have had the opportunity to utilize RSVP services over the past few months. In February, I had my first knee replacement, and my husband and I had only recently moved to Burlington with no extended family available to assist us. So finding out about RSVP was nothing short of a godsend. I didn't have to worry about getting to therapy 3 times a week. Then in June, I had the other knee replaced. Once again, RSVP was a game changer. The drivers were always so helpful and nice, even brought fresh tomatoes from his garden. Thanks, Lynn. Miss Mary was truly an angel when we were so concerned about how I would get back and forth to my appointments. This is an amazing group of people and an outstanding program. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
So that's, thank you, Shane. It is definitely useful to those that don't really have another way. I just got this Thanksgiving card this weekend from a gal that we transport. She said, "I appreciate and thanks for all you do for me and others. I want you to enjoy lunch at Big Muddy's. Your help has relieved a lot of stress in my life, and I am so grateful." So
Good.
what we do, they really do appreciate. The other part of RSVP is a page that I gave you. It lists the 34 stations where we have placed 109 volunteers, and last fiscal year, they had over 17,000 hours that they donated to the community. The largest was Great River, and then RSVP had 1,400. Alzheimer's, Art Guild, congregate meals, delivery of meals, tutoring in the elementary schools. The city of Burlington, we helped with the race this spring. We even had people that watered the flowers during the summer downtown. Friends of the Depot, Golden Oldies, Grimes School, Milestones is the meal delivery, and the blood bank. So we're basically several places in town where the volunteers come and go pretty much on their own accord. The ones that I have the most dealings with are the drivers, because the people call me for rides, and then I have to coordinate it with the drivers and tell them the situation, and then I record that information, et cetera. So that's basically what I do. Any questions?
Did you get a report back from Hy-Vee on how much money?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
But our group has really done a stupendous job of getting money raised. We've sold community basket tickets, as you people know, here in City Hall. And our last venture was at Hy-Vee, and that was just right before Thanksgiving. So I'm anxious to see how much we earned, 5% of that. And we've done a benefit at Wild Wings and earned $100 and some. I wrote a letter to Standard of Beaverdale explaining our situation, and they sent me $300. Weingard sent $1,000. So, here and there we're building. And then I just sent a letter to Great River today, and a gal is going to follow through, thinking that they definitely need to pitch in and help us to continue our program.
In transporting these people, is it just local, or do you take them to Iowa City also, or?
We do have some trips to Iowa City, but the people have to pay for that because our funds are
I see.
little to nothing.
So
So,
most of it's local then here.
and
great
like
service.
85% of our trips go out to Great River, and yet they don't pay us anything anymore. So that's what we're trying to get back.
What is the major contributor to RSVP?
At this time, Becky? What's that?
Hospital used to be, and they cut our funding a couple years ago, so not really, it's just little fundraisers, 100 here, 200 there.
And the clients, they don't pay us completely, but this past year, I believe it was like maybe 80% of what they had given us. But through Community Basket, $1,200 we raised, so that's a pretty good chunk of change. United Way is going to kick in, by the way, in January. That's the first time that we've ever applied for them.
So we don't as a city help out with RSVP?
Nope. No. The RSVP was running through our books for a period of time. They had a cash balance, I don't know how much it was, that they'd worked off over the course of the last couple of years, and that was one of the things as you reach the end of that funding. it became a pretty serious issue this last year.
Yeah, that 6,000 a year.
And that was where, with United Way, this last cycle, you were able to get on as one of their funded agencies. How much are you receiving annually through United Way now?
We have not yet, but I believe they dispersed the funds in January, and that'll be $8,500.
Yeah.
And that 6,000 that's no longer was part of my salary and paying the expenses here at City Hall, that type of thing. So we were always on our own to earn the money for the medical transportation program. But over the years, the county supervisors no longer can afford it. The city, who else was it that used to, in the hospital? So we've tried our best to fundraise in all these new ways. Becky is on the council, and she's been a great help. I'm trying to think if we did, Sarducci's, but that was little or no money there for that one. But so far, we're still able to do it and want to keep it going, because I really don't know what some of these people would do. They just can't ride the city bus or take a cab.
I would like to see, the city help out RSVP in some way, shape, or form. I mean, I wouldn't think there would have to be anything huge, but for the service that they do, I would just think that we would want to be somewhat of a partner in that.
Well, I have an office here, that's a plus. A roof over my head.
Well, that helps. I just thought that,
I mean, yeah, it would be nice to be able to, I mean, take care of everyone in the community, both young and old.
We'll see what
But-
that request for the hospital does,
Yeah.
because they really should be paying their fair share.
nobody's interested in bringing it up at budget time.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to add, you have to subtract from something else, so. That's the way I look at it anyway.
How much would you say the amount was that you were waiting on to receive from, or do you have a budget from what you run off of for the?
That's the thing that Iowa City, this new director has never told me, but I know that they're in financial straits and they're trying to find someone else to finance. Elder Service took over RSVP when the city no longer had Lorraine Elleroff, is that her name? Yeah, because she was a paid full-time city employee. So the $8,500 that we're going to get in January will be a big boost to keep it going, and then
It's just a phenomenal service I don't want to lose, but I definitely think I will have to bring it up come budget time.
well, for,
I just want to say again, and I know I can speak of the council on this, job well done. You guys do some fantastic work for a lot of people that, I think that letter from Lisa Hart.
that says it all.
Lisa, yeah, I think that, man, that says a mouthful.
And those that are willing to pay $7 a trip, usually there's a thank you note when they send me their check. You know, we have a lot that cannot afford to pay us, but those that do, they're all grateful, they really are.
For those, because I would like to make a personal contribution too. For those that would like to do that, how do we do that?
Just make a check out to RSVP.
And send it to City Hall? They can do that?
To me.
Yeah, I would think we need to know how much the program has been costing and what their income is before we talk about what we might be able to do.
Yeah, that'd be,
We'd have to know what the budget is and all that kind of stuff.
Well, Shane just thought I should expose you to what I do and the money that's there.
it's a service a lot of people don't know about, and
Yeah, that's what I was
it kind of runs under the radar, but it means a lot to, again, to those people that are in need. It's, I could be that guy down the road, and I'll tell you, I sure would like a ride if I need one, so what a blessing, but
And I know that you work awfully hard, so I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Yeah,
do you guys have any other questions for Mary?
I'm good. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming down too.
I want to find out where the hospital,
Good job, Shane.
I want to find out where the hospital.
Ron DeFreebert,
I'll be at a meeting.
Library Annual Report.
Well, thank you. I put out at your place right before the meeting a copy of our printed annual report. Anyone can pick that up. We have those available at the library. We also have it on our website, so anyone who wants to see that printed report can do that. Before I get started on my report, I do want to say that Becky's kind of doing double duty today. Becky Godfrey is also a library board member, so along with being with RSVP, so glad you can be here today. So when I look at how to talk about the library and what that activity level is like, one of the things I like to do is to break it down into what happens on an average day at the library. So I take all the totals for the year and the total number of days that we were open and figure those numbers out. So you can see in fiscal year 16, which is the year that we're covering here, on an average day, people borrowed 1,458 items, or downloaded, borrowed or downloaded items. And really that is sort of that traditional, what people think of when they think of libraries, the community pooling their resources to have a collection of materials that everyone can share and use and borrow, like that. Now,
Every day, you're saying?
mm-hmm. Now, if you were to come in the summer, you would find that number to be quite a bit higher because we have all the kids coming in doing summer reading program. If you come on a snowy day in January, it's probably quite a bit less, but on an average, averaging out for the whole year, that's what you get. I also broke it down by the types of materials that are being borrowed and downloaded, and you can see that still the main thing people want are the print books. 706 books on an average day are checked out. The other thing you can notice on here is that when it comes to downloadables, it's grown over the years since we first started having those, but it's still a pretty small piece of the overall use of the library. So on an average day, 55 books, audiobooks, we also have music and magazines that you can download. All of those things together make up about 55 items on an average day. So they're an important part of our use. It's nice that we can offer those, and there are definitely people who want that type of service, but still a lot of people using the print materials. You see the youth ebooks that are up there at 106. That's quite high, and part of the reason why that is so much higher than the other is because that set of resources gets used by the schools. And so it's the Tumble books that we have access to, and we provide those through our website, and a lot of the teachers like to use those in their classes. And so that's why that number gets quite a bit of use there. Of course, people aren't only coming to check things out or borrow things from the library. We get, on average, 723 people coming into the library. Again, in the summer, we'll have days that over 1,000 people are going to come into the library. And one of the big things that people still come to the library for is to ask questions. My first job when I went into libraries was as a reference librarian, and when I came here, that's what I did, was reference librarian. The types of questions we get asked have shifted a little bit. You know, when I was first doing reference, you'd get a lot more questions for people wanting to know the address or phone number or lotto number winners, those kind of things, that now people can look up a little easier. So we get a lot of how-to kind of questions now, or more in-depth reference questions, a lot of technology questions. A lot of times we're helping people with formatting their resume, getting it uploaded to a job site where they're doing an application, those kinds of things. And you can see the next, one of the next big areas that people use the library for is logging into the computers that we have, or using our Wi-Fi. And one of the things that I've been noticing over the last few years is that the number of Wi-Fi logins is almost as much as the number of people logging into our physical computers. Part of that is more people have their cell phone that they're logging into our Wi-Fi with, so they're carrying around devices all day long that they're using Wi-Fi for. Also, we started a couple of years ago offering laptops that people can check out to use in the library, and that's more than doubled in use. So we're getting a lot of people using our laptops, logging in wirelessly, to use that in one of our meeting rooms or at one of the tables in the library. So also, people coming in for classes and events, meetings. On an average day, 5 people will come in and get a library account who didn't have one. And then we offer about 3 classes on average every day. One of the areas that we always stress, and I know you've all heard my annual report last year, so I know you all have heard this a little bit before. One of the areas that we really focus on is serving youth and families. And part of the reason that we do that is because when we did our strategic plan a few years back, that was what the community group said was their number one thing they wanted us to focus on. So we do put quite a bit of our effort into that area. We, in the last fiscal year, in fiscal year 16, we did have a change of staff. So we have a new manager for that section. So that year she came in July, right at the beginning, that fiscal year. And so a lot of that year was her transitioning into that, kind of keeping up the momentum of the things we were doing. But also she has a few new things that she's been bringing in and continuing to add some new ideas and changing things up a little bit. We've been doing the Baby Needs Book Program for years. For the last few years now, the Rotary Club sponsors that. They give us the funds in order to buy the books. So every child born at Great River Medical Center gets a book to start off their life, a book for their home library, and their parents get information about why it's so important to read to children. And the same person on our staff who manages our Babies Need Books also does our Baby Garden program. And Baby Garden is for those children from birth to 24 months. We offer 3 sessions a week where parents can come in and bring their littlest ones for those classes. Then they can graduate into Wiggle Time, into Story Time, and our 3-2-1 Blast-Off Club. Now, we're already about 5 months into a new fiscal year, so I can't help but tell you a little bit about what's going on in this fiscal year, too. So now, last fiscal year, we had a transition in this department because we had a new manager come in. We ended the year with one of our longtime beloved storytellers leaving the library, retiring in August, so we found out about it at the end of fiscal year 16. So at that time, Miss Debbie did Wiggle Time, Story Time, and 3-2-1 Blast Off, which is quite a few. It was 8 different weekly classes that she was doing. So one of the things we're doing now in the new fiscal year is we've divided that among some different staff members. So others are getting experience with doing those kind of classes, so we have a little more flexibility for people to move around and be able to help out with those kind of things, rather than putting it all on one person. And I think people are enjoying having that opportunity, too. We do quite a few other things. One of those is our outreach to preschools, and for the last couple of years, the Murray Foundation has supported us in that. In fiscal year 16, we went from 19 classes that we went to 27. And really that jump was because we started out doing Grimes Elementary's preschool, but we hadn't added all the others in the Burlington School District. So by adding all of those, that upped the number of classes that we went to. Also, with the funding that we get now from the Murray Foundation, we're able to end the year by giving every child a book to take home for their home library. So that's been a nice addition, too. One of the new things that we added was the Read Aloud to a Buddy program. And so we have volunteers who are available for kids to read to, or they can read to, you can see over in the corner there, the stuffed giraffe, or to a service dog that comes in. And actually, Angie from Joint Safety over here is the one who brings in the dogs when we have people who register for that program. And the kids love to just curl up with the dog and read. A little less intimidating than reading to an adult. So that's been a nice program. It's just starting to get going. Yoga Storytime Lego Club have been around for a while, and those are monthly programs. One of the new things that we've been able to offer in the last fiscal year was to expand our STEM classes, the science, technology, engineering, and math. We got a grant for Lego Robotics a couple of years ago, got all those kits. And then in the last year, we got funding primarily from our Friends group to add Little Bits, which is more of kind of a circuitry thing, and to add coding, so kids can come and take coding classes at the library as well. And we participate in the STEM Festival at SCC every year to talk about those things that we make available for kids. One of the things that's really changed significantly for us is our tween and teen classes and events. When you look back, if you read, this month we just are celebrating 10 years in our library building, had the 10th birthday party for the building. And so when you look back over those 10 years, teen services is one of the biggest changes. Back in fiscal year 6, we had 10 activities or events for teens in the whole year. This last year, we had 166. Now, some of that is because we go to the school district now, and we go to multiple classes. And some of that is because we offer every Thursday night an event for teens, and then a couple of times a month for that tween age group. So quite a few things being offered now. One of the pictures you'll see up here is we did get a grant from Alliant Foundation this last year, and we used that to help do some remodeling in our teen area. We also have a picture here, our TCOS group, which is our teen advisory group, marched in the homecoming parade a year ago. And that group it stands for Teens Inspiring Change, Optimism, and Service, and they're related with the Optimist Club. And so not only do they help us by providing information about what they want from the library, but they also do service projects through Optimist. So when you see the flags go up, as they just did recently for Veterans Day, we have a group of teens that go out with this group and do that and take them down as well. And they get a little bit of funding then that they use for their teen events that we have at the library.
How many teens come on a regular basis on your Thursday nights?
Yeah, I would say that we get anywhere, I mean, some nights it'll be, 10, and some programs she'll end up with 30. So it really varies quite a bit with teens, maybe more so than some of our others. And sometimes it's even a little, less or more than that too, but somewhere it's quite a range in what she gets. But one of the things that's been great for us is that we have a staff person, Becky Ruberg, who has really taken this on, and she's developed a lot of relationships with these teens. So we have some that come every week, but also that spread the word about what's available at the library. And because she's also the person going into the schools, she's getting to know a lot of these kids as well, and that's been a really good thing. And she's very passionate about serving this age group. And that's the next thing I wanted to mention is our partnerships with the school district. We do go in monthly to the middle schools. Becky goes in monthly to the middle schools and does book talks in different classes. She also goes to the before and after school programs, and that includes the middle schools and also North Hill. And she serves on the Pieces After School Advisory Board, and then we also have another staff member who's on the YouthNet steering committee through the school. We've jointly sponsored some events before. People come to us for field trips. And then our summer bookmobile, which I know you've heard me talk about before, had its second year and did quite well, and we hope to continue that. You'll notice on the back here of the written report, there's a comment from a parent who said, 5 kids never would have read this summer or be here, the award ceremony that we do each year for summer reading, today if you didn't have the book bus. And that may seem like a small number, but those 5 kids this particular person knew about. We think that's important because we're getting to some of these parts of the community where people have a harder time getting to the library, or it may not be something that they put into their regular day. So it's nice to be able to go out and serve people where they are. And that's really what a lot of this partnership is about with the schools, is serving people where they are, building those relationships and awareness of what we have to offer. As part of our 10th birthday, we asked people to write down what's their favorite thing about the library. And so we had several people who filled out little forms for us, little leaves and books. And a lot of what people talked about were programs for kids. So just as people said when we were doing our strategic plan, people see that. They really appreciate the kind of events and things that we have for kids. And I think I'm glad people see it. That's an area that we've been putting a lot of effort into. They mentioned the summer reading program on one of these little leaves up here. And so I have a few pictures there from summer reading. That's always a big time for events for kids, but then also for them to be able to be keeping up their reading skills throughout the summer. So in all, in fiscal year 16, we had 807 classes for youth. Now that's the teens and the kids and the baby garden and all of that, and over 27,000 participants. And a lot of these programs that we do are really family programs. So a lot of them you'll see adults up in these pictures who are coming to these with their kids. And in this fiscal year, we did our Pumpkin Palooza for the first time. We had over 300 people come, and that was mostly families with kids who came and decorated pumpkins and did different event activities and things. So we've been working on having more of those kind of family outing kind of things that people can participate in. For adults, it's a little smaller number in terms of classes, 72 classes, about 1,800 people participating. One of our big ones is always our seniors program that we have every month. But then we also have computer classes and other kind of special events for people. It's not really a class, but I threw it on here because I didn't have another place to put it. But the Fine Arts League also gave us funding in the last year, and we used that to purchase materials for our fine arts DVD collection. So a lot of Shakespeare plays, things like that got added. But just another way that we appreciate getting help from other parts of the community, other organizations. So again, some of our comments that we got from people really liked the pumpkin painting and things that we did at Pumpkin Palooza. But some of the others, calling out some specific programs, our Tween Club, that's Miss Sarah's yoga, yoga story time there, and Bel Canto, which will be coming here very soon. And someone else mentioned there too, the singing at the library. So I gave you a copy of our December newsletter. Hopefully you're receiving that already. So we've been sending those over. But just in case you didn't have yours, or if you want to share it with someone else, we do have Bel Canto coming up on the 17th. We have the holiday sing-along on the 10th. We have gingerbread house making, lots of different things coming up in December to share. So just as much as people enjoy the classes and events that we have, a lot of people mentioned the books and magazines. Somebody particularly likes Batman books, anime, and all of those kind of things. So, it's nice that people still appreciate all of those and that combination of books and activities that we have available.
Can you, what's anime?
Yeah, anime. Anime is, so manga is like the book version, in a sense. Anime is, they're movies, but they're a particular style of movies. They're animated, but you can tell it's not my area as
no
well.
problem.
I have a staff member who does an anime club, and
The way you said it, you said it like I should have known. what
she's going to be
anime
very
was.
disappointed in my description. But it's a Japanese style of animation, and it has a strong following of people that really like the anime.
It's not our Tom and Jerry. I tell you, I miss our Tom and Jerry.
We have those too. It's all right. We still
Are you
have,
trying to say
we have
we're
Tom
out
and
of
Jerry
touch
too.
here?
No, I'm still.
I don't think he was trying to, I think he said it, that's what he said.
So, and then again, just a few more that I wanted to show you. People are exciting events, awesome books, the books and movies that people could check out. And one of the things, of course, that makes me happy is that people mention that the staff are friendly. That's a great thing. The top one up there, someone mentioned that they love the online features. So I just wanted to make sure to remind people that we do offer things around the clock through our website. So you can do genealogy research with the Ancestry Library Edition. You can, as I mentioned before, you can download songs, you can download magazines, you can download ebooks. Kids can get tutoring help through our website. The Tumble Books, which are online books for younger people. So lots of different services available through our website. I will say I had somebody call on Friday and ask for some help because they were trying to download a book, which is always a little difficult because they're on the phone. I can't see what they're seeing. So anyhow, I ended up downloading the same book just to be able to talk about it and see what was going on. And I'm about halfway through now. I don't think I would have read that book, but I had it on my phone. But I did. I'm just reading it on my phone. So it is, I'm more of a print book person. Maybe that's my age, but it is nice to be able to download a magazine or a book on your phone or tablet or whatever to read as well. And some people really enjoy that. One of the other areas that people, when we did our strategic plan, talked about was that they wanted the library to be a welcoming and comfortable place to be, to spend time. And so I was glad to see when people were filling out some of their favorite things. Obviously, we have a beautiful view of the river. They love the beanbag chairs, so that's good. Nice, cozy place to be. So we get a lot of people who come to the library just to relax, to spend time with other people, as some of them have mentioned on here. And then our meeting room uses, this year was quite a bit higher, over 5,500 people, or meeting room reservations, excuse me, that's quite a bit more people coming to those meetings. So those are our big rooms, if you've been to meetings up right off the lobby there. But it's also all the small rooms, and I think that's where we're seeing our biggest growth, is people reserving those smaller rooms to use as a place to come and study. Or to meet up with someone, or to have a committee meeting, or just to have a quiet place that they can be. So those get quite a bit of use as well. And as I mentioned before, I think it's great when people have mentioned some of the staff, helping them, and being happy to see the staff, because I really do, we owe a lot of thanks to the staff, who are very creative, very passionate about what they do, very dedicated to what they do in serving the community. We also have a wonderful group of volunteers. In the last fiscal year, we had 220 volunteers and over 7,000 hours. And I should say that there's more than that. We always miss recording some volunteer hours. So we try our best to record all that. But some people do things that don't even, they don't want that recognition, so they don't record the time. In the last year, we had our stained glass window donated. These volunteer hours do not reflect the 20-some volunteers through the Stained Glass Club who worked on putting that together and bringing that to the library and donating it to us. Obviously, the Friends group is a huge part of our volunteer effort in doing book sales and running our footnote shop. And all of those funds come back to the library for programs. Almost any time you come for, if you come for a musician or you come for a seniors program, whatever it is, it's almost always the Friends that are making that possible. So we're very fortunate to have them help us out with the programming. And so finally, we're always working to make Burlington a great place to live, work, and play, and creating those opportunities for success. Our mission statement is all about creating opportunities for people of all ages. And that's what I think all of these diverse activities that we do all come together and have in common. So, do you have any questions for me tonight?
I have a statement and a question. Statement is, you guys do a fantastic job.
Thank you.
We do have a fantastic staff at the library. Keep up the good work. The question I have is on page 2. There's a dapper-looking gentleman in a red or a yellow sweater, and then there's a guy sitting right in front of him. There's a balding in the back. Just couldn't make out who that was. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Maybe we should have cropped that picture a little differently, huh?
Interesting.
Thank you.
Well, and I should say, we very much appreciate when we have guest speakers come to our story times and guest readers.
go.
That's a wonderful thing, and we're actually coming up on that again. We usually have folks come in December, so you'll probably be getting asked about that.
You've been requested for Tuesday, the 13th, I think specifically, to come and read.
I seriously
So-
doubt that, but,
Actually, you have been,
Oh, I
because
heard
I'm out of town that day, so.
good.
Rhonda, who runs the coffee shop now?
Oh, yes, good question. Hope Haven runs our coffee shop. That's right there when you first come in, the lobby there. And we're really excited, 'cause this is the 4th year that they have been operating that. And it's been a wonderful partnership. I think one of the great things about having Hope Haven running that is that it provides a service to the community, the people who are coming into the library, and is an additional reason to stop at the library. But it's also wonderful because they're using it as a place to train their clients to work in restaurants, to work in food industry. And so it's just a really nice partnership, and that's been going well. So I'm glad to have them
And
for
they're
a
open
4th
from
year.
when to when?
They're open Monday through Friday from 10 to 2.
10 to 2.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay, a couple other questions.
Sure.
What is the budget for the library that we have? Do you know, Stephanie?
One
the top of your head.
point two
1.2 or
five,
something.
1,230,000, I think.
Somewhere in there.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I was just wondering, have we ever had a city council rep on the library board?
I think
Do
that'd
you
be a
know?
great thing if someone would be interested in doing that. We do have, not in the time that I've worked at the library, let me say, so about 15 years. We do have someone from our contracting communities. We have someone from each of those communities who's assigned as a liaison. So I think it'd be nice to have a liaison as well, if you're interested. I know that the
Just a-
council appoints our board members.
Just a thought.
Mhm.
I've come to a couple
Great.
meetings, but it's once a month, right?
Yes, the third Wednesday at 4:30 is when we have our board meetings. Mhm. And I had meant to mention earlier, Brett, I do monthly reports as well as this annual report, and those get emailed out to you, so I hope you're getting those and I find those helpful. If there's other kinds of things you'd like to see in those reports, always let me know. But one of the things I've done just recently is put those monthly reports on our website along with the annual report, so anyone who's interested in seeing our sort of monthly activities that we're up to can go to our website and see that all in the same place.
Thank you, Rhonda.
That's good.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Great asset to the community.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Thanks.
Okay. We will have Chief Drexel come with ISO rating for fire protection. And then we'll hear, we'll have the treasurer's report after that.
Well, first, just thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about it's actually our public protection classification rating. A lot of people use ISO, and I even use that interchangeably with what's the PPC. So from here on out, I'll try to use the term PPC as the correct terminology, but it's a rating of our fire protection here in Burlington. So back in September, we had representatives from the Insurance Services Office come to Burlington, visited with the fire department, Waterworks, and I believe they also talked with Johnny over at DESCOM. So actually what I'm here to do then is to bring good news as a result of that inspection. So before I give you the results, I'll talk about what the PPC rating is. Again, it's a measurement of a community's effectiveness in suppressing structure fire. So they're not looking at anything else other than how do you respond to a structure fire. And they look at three different places. I say community because a lot of fire departments take the credit for it, but we're only really half of the score here. The other half belongs to emergency communications, or here it's DESCOM. They account for 10 points. They use the latest consensus standards to grade these areas. For DESCOM, they use APCO, which is, I had to write it down here, Association of Public Safety Communications Officers. That's the APCO. For water supply, they use the American Water Works Association standards. And then for the fire department, of course, they use NFPA, National Fire Protection Association standards. So those are standards we're really familiar with. So those are the points they give each area. And then they basically give you a rating on a 1 to 10 scale. So if you have 90 points out of 100, you get a 1, 90 to 100 is 1, 80 points up to 90 is 2, and so forth. So the lower your number, the better your score. So why is it so important? Well, I just said what they're measuring, our effectiveness in combating structure fire. So obviously you want to be as good at affecting structure fires as you can. So they're looking at things like our water, what kind of equipment and where it's located, our training, staffing, location of our fire station. So the better you are at doing that, the lower your property loss, and more importantly, the lower your life loss to fire should be in your community, thereby having a better quality of life. So if you were in a community, or if you were having a fire, or you had a fire at your home and you had a choice between a PPC rated 1 fire department or PPC rated 10, you would take the 1. You know they're going to be close, they're going to be well trained, they're going to be well staffed, they're going to have the right equipment, and they're going to have enough water to fight a fire. So the second reason is most insurance companies either directly or indirectly use the PPC rating to establish rates. It's more correlated toward commercial. A lot of times you'll see a better, if you have a lower rating, you'll see a better insurance rate based solely on the PPC rating, where residential, it's not quite so clear. A lot of research I've done, it said anywhere from a 1 to a 4 on the PPC rating doesn't really affect your residential homeowners rates necessarily, at least not right off. But long-term, it will, because all insurance companies do use something called fire loss history. So over a period of years, they'll look at how many fires you've had and what's the dollar loss. Well, if you're a PPC rated 1 fire department or city, you should have a lot lower fire losses than a city with a PPC of 10 or 4 or 5 or whatever. So eventually that'll catch up to your community where your losses are lower, insurance rates are lower. But then when you look at a residential insurance policy, the fire protection part, that's only part of your insurance. And you know, in Burlington, probably most people don't have a fire loss, they have something due to weather is more likely the cause of their loss. So you could have a number, what I'm saying is you could have a PPC of 1, and that's not gonna make a huge reduction in residential insurance rates, but it will have some effect. And the third thing that it does is it gives the fire department sort of a framework for planning. Like I said, they use the NFPA standards, which is what we're familiar with. So when we're talking about equipment, staffing, response times, all that kind of stuff, we're already using the NFPA standards. So they came in, graded the city, kind of gave us, oh, here's your areas where you're weak, where you can improve. So that didn't cost us nothing for them to come and do that for our city. So we appreciate that. And outside of actually being an accredited fire department, which is a really lengthy, in-depth process, this is the next best thing, and it's a free thing for us to do. So our history, I could find records back to 1983. So from 83 to 2011, we had 3 different ratings in there, and we ended up with a 4 each time, and our points weren't a whole lot different. 2016 one we just had, that's the good news there. We've improved to a 3. So overall, our score was up almost 7 points from where it was. And I can tell you that it wasn't just fire department, it was all the areas working together. And it wasn't an easy thing to increase the score or decrease, however you want to look at it, to improve. We improved. So nationwide, how does our community or fire department compare? Well, there's about 48,000, a little over 48,000 fire departments in the United States. I know that's a lot. Close to 1,000 fire departments per state, I guess. So we actually will rate in the top 10% with our score. There's only about 1,400 fire departments that are above us. And in the state of Iowa, the only one that I know of that's in PPC of 1 is Sioux City Fire Department. I think there's a few 2s, but there's no website you can go to research, so you got to kind of call the fire departments in cities and figure that out for yourself. So Sioux City, the last I knew, was the only one that was throwing that out there and using that on their equipment on their city website as a promotion for their city, saying, hey, we're a PPC 1. I think they actually say ISO class 1. So we'll look at 2016 and the different areas that ISO came in and graded. So emergency communications was worth 10 points. In 2011, they scored 7.18, and then in 2016, they improved to 9.09. And a couple of things that they've done, they've done a lot more training over there. They've established some protocols. And then they've also upgraded the staffing to 2 on duty at all times. So what they want to see is when somebody calls 911, there's a time frame where you get the call dispatched to the fire department, which I believe is a minute, less than 1 minute to receive the call, take the information, have the fire department page to the call. Well, when you only have 2 people or 1 person working in there and they're answering all the 911 calls, that didn't always happen before. Now with 2, it should happen, I believe, 100% of the time. I'm not sure Johnny had that data for him. But that was a big part of the increase. The water supply is worth a large part. I mean, you have to have water to fight a fire. So Waterworks was scored. I know Shane Johnson was down, and we talked a lot, even before ISO came into town, to kind of make sure where we were at and what we were doing. But in 2011, they scored 36.5 points, and in 2016, it was 32, almost 33. And you might look at that and say, man, they didn't do so good. Well, they changed the criteria that they grade the waterworks by, so it got a lot tougher for water. And in the city of Burlington, we really do have good water. We have hydrants, within every 400 feet or so, there's a fire hydrant. Where they fell short was on the doing flow testing. They do annual inspections of every hydrant, every spring and fall. You know, they do the flushing of the hydrants and they inspect them, but they don't do flow testing because it takes a lot more time to do the flow testing. It's labor intensive. However, Shane Johnson, the new, I don't know what his title is, manager of Waterworks, he is working on that. So he's been really good to work with, and I know that's something that's on his radar. So that's not doing flow testing. And then there was about 300 fire hydrants in the city that are old enough that they don't have a large diameter connection. So we can only use 3-inch hose to connect to them, and that affects your score. So over time, those hydrants will break or just go out of service, and they'll be replaced with a newer, better hydrant. So the fire department, what I'm really familiar with here. So we're half of the score is based solely on the fire department. So 2011, we were 28.9, basically 29. 2016, we gained about 2 points just on the fire department. And then we gained 3.6, what they call community risk reduction. So we went from about 29 up to almost 35 from 2011. So that was really good. I just want to talk, this is the only time I'm going to talk about community risk reduction, but those 3.6 points, you can really just look at our fire marshal. He gained almost all of those points because they're looking at how are you protecting your community. One thing, he is a certified fire investigator and he's trained for that. We get points for that. He's a certified fire inspector. He's trained for that. We get points for that. And then also he's been the one that's bringing the codes forward. So as long as you're adopting the codes on a regular basis, the International Fire Code or another code, you get points for that. So those 3.6 points are almost all based on what Mark does. So those were not included before. So there's actually 5.5 community risk reduction points available. So on a 100-point scale, you could theoretically get 105.5. So I guess that's how my kids get better than a 4.0 grade point average. Sometimes they give you extra credit. So there are those points available. So it's a 100-point scale, but there's 5.5 of extra credit. And those are points. There's actually some stuff in there we want to do, like having a certified fire educator. We do a lot of public education, but we don't have anybody that's got the title behind their name that I'm a certified public fire safety educator. So that's something that we want to do. And then besides having the certification, you have to get continuing education on top of that. So that's something that we've identified. So here's a breakdown of the fire department score. And I didn't compare it straight with 2011 because a lot of the categories have changed. Like the credit for engine companies, it used to be worth 10 points. Well, now it's only worth 6. So you can't really compare 2011 to 2016 because it wouldn't make any sense. So we've always been worth a total of 50 points of the score, but how they figured the 50 points up is a little bit different. So on credit for engine companies, we did really good on that. What they're requiring us to bring are 3 engine companies to every structure fire call, and we bring 2 and West Burlington brings 1. So that part we're doing good. Where we lost some points on that is the distance from the fire station. So everywhere within the city has to be within 1.5 miles of an engine company. So that's where we lose out on that. And then we did really good on reserve engine companies. Pumper capacity, we're maxed. Our community has to provide 3,500 gallons per minute at a fire scene based on our commercial structures in the city. We can bring that. We bring 3 engines that are all at 1,500 gallons per minute capable. So we're more than capable of providing 3,500 gallons per minute. So pumper capacity is good. Ladder service, again, we respond to ladder on every structure fire from Central Station. But they want your ladder company to be within 2.5 miles of everywhere in your city. Well, 2.5 road miles from Central gets you somewhere out around McDonald's on Roosevelt, and about the same on north and south from Central Station. So that's just not, that's where we lose the points there. And same with on the reserve ladder and service trucks, not a whole lot of points available there. So in the end, the fire department left about 19 points on the table. So there's 19 points out there that we could somehow figure out how to add to our score. I'm going to go through the bottom 4 because we lost the most points here. Deployment analysis, again, that's what I was talking about. The distance from the from an engine company and from a ladder company, and it's road miles. All areas of the city must be within 1.5 miles from an engine company and 2.5 from a ladder company. And there's a lot of, south and north and a little bit west of town. Some of those areas don't fall in there. And part of that is because where we have Central Station, that we call Central Station, really isn't centrally located. It's too far to the east. It's really close to the river to be central. It should be more like 2 miles away from the river. All I can figure is in 1907, that probably was the center of Burlington. It was a great spot, you know. I'm not saying we need to move Central Station. I'm just saying that's the reason why we don't get all those points, so. One way to overcome that, if you had 3 stations in Burlington, really to the north and the west is where that other one would have to be. So we lost about 3 points there. Company personnel was another one where we struggled, especially compared to the last one. Per NFPA 1710, which is the response standard, and for this grading, they're requiring 3 engine companies and a ladder, and each one of those vehicles should have 4 personnel, and then a battalion chief or a chief officer responding. So about 17 people for a structure fire. You can go down to 16 for a residential. If you're talking a commercial or anything over 3 stories, you need the 17 responding. And that's on the initial response. They're not looking at what can you do in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, because in 20 minutes, man, we can get a good response to any fire in the city in 20 or 30 minutes. But they're looking in the first few minutes. That's the most important time, at least if you're going to stop a structure fire from getting any worse. So at the 20 and 30 minute mark, if you're still see a fire there, it's usually pretty bad at that point. So compared to the ideal, what are we bringing currently? Well, we're bringing the 3 engines and the ladder, but our engines have 2 people, and our ladder company our ladder has 1 person. We're taking 1 person off the engine to bring the ladder truck. West Burlington, they usually will get 4 people on their engine, so that does help when they respond. So we're usually showing up with the 10 on duty in West Burlington 4, so on a good day, we'll have 14 that show up there. But they also then deduct your ambulance personnel. If you have people on the ambulance, I think it's a half. So each person that's on the ambulance is worth half, because they realize what are the chances that they're going to be available for a fire call. So they do reduce your staffing for that. So all that's figured into why we only got 6.25 out of the 15. And I know I talked to Tim a little bit on emails about some of how they score stuff. I'm not the expert. It's a really long mathematical formula how they came up with this. But if you'd have a question, if you email me or ask me, I'll try to figure that out. Training was the other area. We only got about half of the points available, and to me that was disappointing, because that's one thing that we've been trying to hit on. We were, trying to get the hours in, get the proper training in the proper areas, and we did really good in some of the areas, like our driver training, either for new or existing drivers. All of our engine drivers had to take the certification course and got certified as driver operators. All the way from the guys that are 55 years old on down, everybody went through the training, got the certification, and then they get the required annual training hours. So we got all the points for that. Same with the hazmat training, the recruit training. All of our new hires, by their job description and the contract they sign, they have to within 1 year be trained to firefighter 2 and be certified. Well, that satisfies their recruit training requirements. Officer training, we do really good on the hours. Each officer needs to receive 12 hours of fire officer training per year. We're doing good on getting the 12 hours. We actually get more than that. Where we fall a little short is we have 3 officers that need to get their fire officer certification. So within the last few years, we started requiring that if you're going to get promoted, you have to have the certification ahead of time. So we have 2 people that are actually taking the class next month, so that will help. Company training, that's company fire training, so it has to be fire related, and they have the topics listed there that you have to try to cover, or they have to be within these topics. It's 192 hours a year, or 16 hours per month per person. Well, with all the other things you're doing and the 20 calls you're going on today and the smoke detectors and the inspections that you're doing, it is really hard not only to just schedule 16 hours of fire training, but then to have somebody available to do the 16 hours. So that's one area we're trying everything we can to get the 16 hours in, but we're not doing it. We're using online training. You can use some online, you can't use all online, but we use some online training where they can do it when they're at their leisure. So when they have any downtime, or some people even do it from home, they can do some of the training on their computer and get it knocked out. Also, you'll see us out using whatever areas we can to do training, whether it be a street, a house that's going to be demoed pretty soon. Any opportunity like that, we try to jump on those to get our fire training in. And that kind of goes back up to the facilities. Another area where we fall short, we got 7 points out of 36 available, and they're wanting us to have a fire training facility at least 3 stories high. You have to be able to do live fire training there. They want about a 2-acre size. We fudge on the 2 acres, and we can use all different areas of town that are 2 acres, so we can come up with 2 acres to train on. It just doesn't have a facility on it. And then in addition to that, you need to spend 18 hours per year per person at the facility training. So again, those come from NFPA. I was already familiar with those requirements, so we've been working on those, but we're about halfway there on the company training, and I don't know how we're going to get there on the facility. Oh, and I didn't hit the pre-plans. We are working on pre-plans. We got some points, but they want an annual pre-plan of all non-residential, anything that's bigger than a 1 or 2 family residential. You have to do a pre-plan every year. Well, there's a lot of buildings in Burlington. That's a lot of time and effort, and we're working on that process. We're getting them entered in the computer. That's what probably takes the longest part, to do the initial. Then after that, it'll be an update. So we're hoping once we get through everything once, at least we've identified the high priority areas, we'll get those done, and then we'll get them on a regular rotation. If a whole shift doesn't go out there, an engine company, maybe one person calls or something to update the contact information, make sure the building name hasn't changed, and the hazards aren't different than they used to be, that kind of thing. So they make it really hard to get to a 1.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Which is good.
Which is good, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't mean anything if everybody was a 1. So what does this mean for Burlington? Well, yeah, we're in the top 10% of the fire departments nationwide. So I think that's something that, you can sleep well at night knowing that you're well covered. And I think it's something that everybody that lives in Burlington can be proud of. The second thing is, it means the fire department knows that we're on the right track, but we have room for improvement. And same could be said for the Waterworks and DESCOM. We've all identified areas where we could improve. The one thing I would say about that there are not very many measuring sticks for the fire department that are out there. I mean, I can say we respond in this amount of time, and we go on all these calls or whatever, but this is actually a third party coming in and looking at our fire department and saying, this is where you rate. So it has a little more validity for the fire department. So that's important to us.
How often is this done?
They're trying to do it every 4 years. So we
Every 4 years.
were 5 on this one, but when he was here, he said they're trying to get on a regular schedule to do it every 4. So as far as improving our class and getting up to a 2, I think it's going to be tough with where we're at right now. If we were where we were at, say, 10 years ago, with the number of people on duty and having a dedicated training officer, the training officer would make a huge difference as far as the training would go. We would have been a lot closer to a 2. I'm not saying we would have been a 2, but we would have definitely been a lot closer to it. And the one thing I would like to close out this debate, I don't know if my fire department guys are listening, but I'd like to say I'm proud of those guys. We've asked them to do a whole lot since I've been the chief. For one thing, we go on a lot more calls, probably almost double to what it was when I started. We do a heck of a lot more training. We cover way more territory, do more pre-plans, do more physical fitness, more public education, put up more smoke detectors, and do more inspections than we have ever done since I've been on the fire department. One thing that was brought up in the city manager's wage discussion was somebody had mentioned the cut to city services. I thought, we've never cut one service at the fire department, not one program, not one territory, nothing. All we've ever cut was people and maybe purchasing some equipment. So we've done all that, and we've actually, instead of cutting services, we've added, since I've been the chief, or even before that, we've been adding, every year we add something. We're gonna go to Illinois, we're gonna take on the townships, we're gonna provide transfers to Great River, and whenever they call, we're gonna take a transfer as a service to them. So we're always adding stuff. We're gonna add some more training and inspections. And we're doing all that with the lowest number of people working at the fire department, at least in the last 50 years. I asked 2 chiefs ago, Chief L, if he ever remembered the fire department staffing being below what it is now. And while he was there, at one time, there was up to 52 people on the fire department. It's actually 42 right now, including the daytime staff, so. I just want to say I appreciate the work that our guys are doing, but it does take its toll on the workforce, so. I know some people think if you're busy, if you're real busy like we are, well, that's good. And it is maybe from a revenue generation. If we want to generate revenue, adding more services, taking more ambulance calls, yeah, that brings in more money, but it does take a toll on your workforce. So I guess that's a discussion for another day. But this discussion is that the rating was good news for the city of Burlington. So
Good.
Very good.
any
Congratulations.
questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well done.
Three's better than 4.
Treasury report? Net?
In the packet, again, was 2 treasurers' reports. We still have June's. Nothing's changed since last month. We are hoping to hear from the auditors this week. They've told me that we should get our draft financials back, so we can see if there's any changes, but we're not aware of any. Then the other one is October's treasurer's report is also in here. There's nothing really out of the ordinary. You'll see that the revenues, we have got our property taxes recorded in this month, so we're just kind of going along. Nothing stands out as unusual or nothing that we weren't aware of that was happening.
Is there some other money that we're waiting on right now?
What?
Is there some big dollars that we're waiting on right now?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I mean, we have little grants and stuff that we, it's timing issues of when we get the money, but nothing big.
You guys good? No other questions for Annette?
No.
Well done.
All right, thanks.
I like the progress we're making, obviously, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, page 1. Number 2, I'm gonna have to get out of here pretty soon. We've got a public hearing, consideration of a sale of property locally known as 227 South 9th Street, City of Burlington, Iowa, with conditions. Mr. Tisland.
I'll show a map here of the location. This is located on South 9th Street, south of Division, north of Etna, on the west side of 9th Street. This is again a home we acquired through the abandoned building process. This is one we had a discussion a few months back on with the neighborhood redevelopment group here, talking about trying to get homes into owner-occupied status. This is one that has been targeted by that group to do that with. So the conditions as placed on the sale would be the property would be required to be owner-occupied for 3 years from conveyance of the property from the purchaser to the, or from the developer to the purchaser. The purchaser would have to be 80% of the area median income for Des Moines County.
What is that right now?
And I have that here. So for one person, it'd be 35,500. A 2-person household would be 40,000. 3 would be 45. 4 would be 50,000. 5 would be 54,750. On up to 66,900 for an 8-person family. So that's the 80% income level for Des Moines County in 2016. It is a 4-bed, 2-bath home, so it would fit a larger family. Would have to meet all the same requirements as far as bringing the home up to current housing standards prior to occupancy, getting all permits and meeting all applicable codes. Southeast Iowa Regional Planning Commission through their Housing Inc. Arm has expressed interest in the house and doing rehab on it. Transitions DMC has also submitted a bid, minimum amount bid on it as well. So I guess whoever purchases it, whether if they're not income qualified, they'd have to rehab it and then sell it to an income qualified individual that owns the property. It couldn't be a contract sale as well, so it would have to be in title in the name of the owner of the, or resident of the home. It's a little different than we've done before. as mentioned during that discussion, kind of trying to meet some of the goals of getting owner occupied in some of these neighborhoods as well. But the purchaser does not have to be the person that lives in the home. Someone can buy it, fix it up, and then sell it, but they have to sell it to someone income qualified, and that person they sell it to has to reside in the home. It cannot be a rental for the first 3 years.
Did we as a council approve all these covenants, or is it, or up to us to approve it now?
It's up
on
to you
this?
to approve it through the sale. If you want to amend that, we'd have to amend the sale process. This was brought forward based on that discussion with Bill Partain, Mike Norris, and Mike Shin were here a few months ago.
Yeah, okay.
You guys good?
Sort of.
Right. Number 3, we got a public hearing, consideration of an ordinance amending various sections of Chapter 159 Mechanical Code of the City of Burlington Municipal Code. This will be the first reading. Mr. Tisland?
This one's probably one of the more straightforward codes, just going to the 2015 edition of the International Mechanical Code, as well as the note that the residential code shall apply to 1 and 2 family dwellings with no other changes to the code. This one's fairly straightforward as codes go from a building perspective.
Right on. You guys, anybody have any problems with that?
No.
I don't.
Just go on this side? Good. Okay, well done. Number 4, motion for preliminary adoption of the second reading of an ordinance amending various sections of Chapter 157, Electrical Code of the City of Burlington Municipal Code. Mr. Tisland?
No changes from the previous reading, again, going from the 2011 to the 2014 National Electrical Code. Some other provisions as discussed previously, the residential code applying to 1 and 2 family dwellings, and some minor changes throughout, including taking out the restriction on metal cable, flexible metal tubing, allowing that within development as allowed by code as well.
You guys good on this side?
Do we need to go through all 3 readings on this?
Let's see, wait, if we can.
I'm okay to waive it.
Yeah.
Fine with me.
Okay, it's definitely a waiver. So we're good?
Yes.
Number 5, motion for preliminary adoption of the second reading on this one as well, of an ordinance amending various sections of Chapter 158, Plumbing Code of the City of Burlington Municipal Code. Mr. Tisland?
Going from the 2012 to the 2015 edition of the Uniform Plumbing Code, no changes from the previous reading. Again, some other minor changes throughout the section of code to some of the wording, but the major point is updating to the current code.
You guys want to ditto on number 5?
Yep.
Please.
We good?
Yep.
Okay. Number 6 is a motion for preliminary adoption of the second reading of an ordinance amending various sections of Chapter 170, Zoning Code of the City of Burlington Municipal Code. Mr. Tisland?
This has 3 changes, one being non-conforming structures, allowing rebuild of structures provided they get maintenance agreements, and allowing them to rebuild to their current setbacks for accessory structures and single-family residential uses. Multifamily structures would still have to meet the setback requirements unless they're part of a historic district. The second would be the 0 lot line standards, having the provisions within our code so they don't have to go through rezoning to allow those unless they're in an R1 district, which would still require a PUD overlay, so there's additional review on those types of rezonings where they're located adjacent to a separate zoning district or and have a landscape buffer as part of the development. So looking at 0 lot line standards and non-conforming structures, no changes from the previous readings, and both of these were recommended 6-0 and 4-0 by the Planning Commission.
Does this apply to the Coffin property on Polk Street?
This would for an accessory structure.
That's what I
yeah.
thought. Good. Thank you.
You guys good?
Did you get your question asked, or did you ask?
Yeah, the question that I'd asked was whether this would apply to if you had a house that, well, we had a house that was burnt down a year and a half ago,
Mhm.
and the lot wasn't conforming, and your answer on that, Eric?
could rebuild provided he met current code standards, building code standards, but also if is too close to a side property line, I think it was a 30-foot lot, you'd have to get the maintenance agreement.
Yeah.
Too close to the rear property line, he could rebuild at that setback, since it's adjacent to a right-of-way. But would still have to meet all those requirements and get the conditional use permit and the maintenance easement from the neighbor.
But again, we're talking about a single family or a,
Single family only or accessory structure, multifamily only in historic district, which is just the Heritage Hill District.
all right.
We good?
Yep.
I don't know, but you wanna waive that one too, or I don't know, what do you think?
If no one comes forward, I would like to see us waive it, because there's
Yeah,
people waiting.
I don't have a problem with that,
Okay. I thought
But if
maybe
somebody
we wait
comes
one,
up-
But, yeah, okay, sounds good to me.
not including Nick.
Yes, sir. Are you gonna let me read this first?
Yeah, no, I'm just anticipatory.
Guy's on top of it.
He's on it, man. A resolution of support for the Environmental Protection Agency voluntary long-term storm sewer planning technical assistance.
This is just a resolution showing city council's support towards the technical assistance money that we're going to receive from the EPA.
Any problems with that?
No. Bring it on.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Scott said bring it on. All right. On the proposed consent, we have a resolution approving nuisance abatements. You guys good with that? Any problems?
4 pages again.
Too much.
Yeah, no doubt. Number 2, then, resolution approving purchase of an international truck chassis for the wastewater treatment facility. Don.
Replacing this existing truck was something that was budgeted for fiscal year 2019 at a cost of $105,000. The truck has deteriorated more quickly than what we anticipated. Item number 2 and number 3 kind of go together. The first is for the truck chassis itself using the state bid being supplied by Center State International. And the new dump body for the truck would come from Knapheide in Quincy, Illinois. We took 3 quotes on the truck body, and we are recommending the more expensive of the 3. The other 2 trucks did not meet the original specs. They offered to make some modifications. We discussed the modifications with them and elected to go with the truck that did, or the truck body that did meet the specifications. The truck is used to, we load it and transport our biosolids from our sludge dewatering operation over to our storage building. And we also use the same truck to handle grit and screenings that are removed from the plant influent and take it out to the landfill. We have a letter from Center State indicating that's a state bid price. And as I said, the memo discusses the fact that it's being moved from 2019 up to the current year to help try to pay for it. We had 2 trucks in the current fiscal year, CIP, a small pickup truck and a full-size pickup truck. We're proposing to move the purchase of those 2 trucks back to 2019, where this dump truck was originally located. It still leaves us short of $54,000, which Stephanie's indicating this can be paid from the current sewer fund balance.
You guys good with that?
I am.
I don't like it, but
You see a problem with the budget items?
Go ahead.
you got a hole in this truck.
Jim?
There's adequate cash balance. He's rotating these around in order of what he's replacing when. This may be more than what the other item was, but the other item will move back to the year that he was looking to do this one in, so.
That should work.
We good?
Thank you.
You might want to stay right there.
Why?
Or not.
No, he's covered that.
He covered that one too.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Don.
Number 3 was a resolution approving purchase of the new dump body with tarp system for the wastewater treatment facility. Number 4 is a resolution approving an amended 28E agreement between the City of Burlington, Iowa and the City of West Burlington, Iowa for sanitary sewer conveyance and treatment.
And we have a 2080 agreement already in place for this purpose. The rate structure that was set up in there was for us to bill residents that were in that area, and then we would get a separate bill from West Burlington, and it was an estimated amount, seems how it's contemplated that that would be without any meters in place. These new residents are all metered. With that being the case, they can fairly easily take the water reading that's off of there and bill them based off of their West Burlington's rate structure. I think it's 1.5 times their rate structure, rather than us being a conduit to bill them and then turn around and turn the money over. They'll just be a direct bill.
You guys good?
Yep.
Got it figured out, that's good.
All right. We've got a public hearing set for December 19th. Consideration of an ordinance amending various sections of Chapter 162 Fire Prevention Code of the City of Burlington Municipal Code. Mr. Tislin, do you have anything?
Just a reminder of the free community cleanup this Friday, December 2nd, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the south boat ramps, south of the auditorium. Just spring cleanup items and trash. Will not accept other items such as batteries, tires, demo material, appliance, electronics, TVs. And it is, individual will have to unload their own vehicle at the site, show proof of water bill and residency as well.
Okay. Councilwoman Wilson?
Good, thank you.
All right. And nice picture of you on the
Oh,
library
yeah,
thing.
thanks.
Councilman Scott?
I've received 2 anonymous postcards from 300 Angular Street with concerns about Archer Marine parking boats on the street. I don't know if they're legal or illegal, or if they have some kind of agreement or something, but I'm just passing that along at this point. On Hageman Street, they still have gravel in the holes that they dug for the gas lines. I'm just real concerned if we get some snow on the ground, we're gonna beat the heck out of those holes. They've done pretty good about getting the sidewalks poured, but they're not getting those holes fixed. And I imagine it's probably because there's no asphalt available, if I had to guess. And the other thing I wanted to mention was the passion that our management staff is showing for their job is just, I think, is incredible.
It's great, and
It's amazing. I mean, with what Rhonda had to do tonight for the library, and the way that the chief, fire chief, expressed his self tonight is extremely commendable, and a bit fearful too. And then to say that, I wanted to mention I got an email from the chief. I had sent him an email about something that had occurred, and he explained to me that when those shots were fired, when the police officers were on site investigating the murder that happened, he explained that when he heard those shots, he was busy investigating at the other end of the street, 5 or 6 blocks away. And when he heard those shots and heard the calls come out, that the thing that went through his mind was, my guys are being ambushed. And I couldn't think of a more fearful thought. It's almost like thinking that your kids or your family's in trouble, and that emotion to have to go through is just tremendous. I mean, it sent a chill down my spine when I read it, and I hadn't even thought of that. You know, all I could think about was how stupid those people were for doing what they were doing, and being critical of that and hadn't even thought about the pressure that the chief was going through at the time. So, just wanted to say how much I appreciate those, the passion that they all have for their jobs and how well they're doing, and thank God they're in those positions right now.
Amen.
Just want to give a shout out to our local teachers, doing a fantastic job. They've got their hands full as well, but the children are our future, and I'll tell you what, from visiting a few of the teachers' classes and spending some time with a few of the local classes, our future doesn't look not so bad. So thanks to all the teachers for what you do, doing a fantastic job. Mayor Pro Tem?
Now, do we have 2 pickups left on Leafs this week and
We'll
next?
finish this week and then one more.
Yeah, this week and next, so get your leaves out there in approved containers.
Yes. Has Descon moved yet to the hospital?
No, Descom actually has a lease arrangement, a proposed lease arrangement to consider. We have a draft lease. I didn't look at that. It was sent today.
20 pages long.
But I assume will get approved at the next Descom meeting. And the plan will, I don't know what the timing will be for that, but it'll be coordinated over the next few months.
That's
But
good.
yeah, everything looks like it should be fine from
I
our
know
side.
the
And I know
hospital's
that,
very pleased to have
and
that there.
from everything I've heard from Johnny with the discussions, they've been very pleased with what the hospital is doing with these arrangements as
Good.
well. So,
Yes, sir. Mr. Fitting?
The question was asked about the LEAF program. I do want to comment that some of the drivers have noted to me that people have their leaves in a program-approved container, such as the leaf bags, but they have them at the alley. And all leaf collection takes place at the curb. If they leave their bags of leaves at the alley, they're not going to get picked up, and they're going to be stuck with them. So if they have leaves, they need to make sure they're at the curbside.
What do they do with bags that have tape on them? Do they take the
Well,
tape
they're not
off?
supposed to tape them because it goes to the compost pile at the
Right.
landfill and the machines. I believe they normally just simply leave them because we indicate that they're not to be taped closed. I mean, there's a, they like to do that so it'll keep the moisture out and the leaves don't blow away or whatever, but it gums up the compost operation at the landfill where the leaves are destined to go.
Thank you, Don.
All right.
Stephanie?
This is just the follow-up, the email I sent
Yes.
last week about Crime Stoppers. So this is the information that's posted on our website. Oh, that internet just changed. Anyway, if you do a search on our website for Crime Stoppers, this will come up. If you go under our, police department, it's a drop-down box too. But it just talks about Crime Stoppers and how you can text a tip. Of course, you can call the phone number. And it's all anonymous, and we do offer cash rewards up to $1,000. So I know we have this year been paying out quite a few tips. So it is, more people are using it than they have in the past. So that is good.
And thank you, Steph, for doing that. I always like to throw out too, if there's somebody that's listening, if you know of something that you think may be happening in the future, something that has not even gone down, but you think that you've heard something that you think could be good information, make a phone call. Make a phone call. We would definitely appreciate it. Citizens of Burlington would appreciate that. So please be a part of the solution. Thank you, Steph, for bringing that.
And then Chief?
Yes. Thanks for doing that, Steph. Tips, they just keep rolling in, but I just kind of want to address a few things with you very quickly. And first and foremost, I want to thank the Saunderson Heights neighborhood. That's an association that's been going on for a long time. We meet with them monthly. It's paying great dividends in this latest event. I mean, the support's unbelievable. I mean, the people have responded in such a positive way, and that's really comforting to know that most of the people, the vast majority of the people in that neighborhood really care about their neighborhood, and they've been very responsive. So thank you, Saunderson Heights. In the real near future, I mean within the week, maybe the next week, we're going to start getting the dog down to Amtrak. That'll probably be a daily thing, or at least when he's on duty and not on days off. We're going to get a hold of Trailways, see what kind of cooperation. I'm confident we'll have cooperation out there.
Awesome.
The post office, FedEx. I mean, we're going to hit it from every angle. One thing I want to add about the dog, he's brand new, or she's brand new. And when all this was happening, where a couple of these suspects ran from, we ran her through there, and she started showing some real interest in all these leaves that were alongside of the house. Long story short, eventually in those leaves we did recover one of the guns. So did she find it? No, but did she point us in the right direction? Absolutely. So those are all good things that are happening. I mean, futuristically, I think we need to talk about some other things that could maybe help us, but could be expensive. And I hesitate to bring some of it forward because it's tried and it's tested, but there's so many other communities that are doing this, and it's really not having an impact. It's not making a big difference, but could it make a difference in the future? Maybe. You know, some of the stuff, that's the trouble with crime prevention. How do you measure what it prevented? How do you do that?
Yeah, right.
I mean, all you can really do is look back over the course of history and go, well, it seems lower this year than it was, but really what was the factor that caused that, and how do you gather that data to put it together? But while speaking of data, I'm running all of our data, especially the last 3 years, on shots fired, you know, any type of gun violence call. We had a lot of this information put together for the COPS grant, so I'm going to get us a hold of some people up at the state level. I mean, from a representative standpoint, legislator, you know, see if there's anything else out there. I think we need to, and when I say we, the Southern District of Iowa needs to do a better job federally prosecuting people with gun violence. I mean, one thing I can say for sure about this case and several others, there's two common denominators that might not be 100%, but in relative certainty they're awful close, is Chicago and felons. Felons. I mean, these are people that are violent people that have been released back to society, and they continue to be violent. And I'm going to kind of end you with this as we try to work our way through this problem. When we had the house on Market Street that got shot up, I was there that night. We had a conversation with the most recent victim. And I'm confident everybody in this room, if I said, hey, you need to do A, B, and C if you want to stay alive, and I'm very serious about that, I'm rather confident everybody would do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Well, no. No, the response was, don't you worry about it. So, I mean, that's the mentality that we're dealing with. And I think the whole community's dealing with that. I mean, we got to figure out a way, folks, to build value into people's lives. And then if that starts down here, so be it. But you got to have some value. And that's something that as a community, not only here, but across this nation, we have to build that value. We have to get that family structure, that discipline, that value back. Because the people that are involved in this, there's no values. They don't have a value for you, for me, for themselves, for anybody. So, but anyway, I'll be bringing some more information forward. I think there's some other ideas that we can certainly discuss. You know, from a financial standpoint, I don't know where it falls out, but it's worthy of the discussion. So that's where we're at. The case is moving along. I mean, we're getting some great information. We got some great leads. We're going in the right direction. So any questions about that? I mean, I know some of it about the case. I have to be vague. I just can't put out those details.
Sure.
Tell the men and women that are working, thanks for their hard work.
We sure
No
appreciate
bit.
it.
It's been
Yeah.
easy, so.
I know that doesn't get them more sleep for what we say, but thank you so much.
Isn't it true that some of these Chicago people you're referring to are not residents here? They're coming into the community and leaving and...
Yeah, some are and some aren't. I mean, some have been here for quite some time.
Right.
But even if they're here and they have somewhat of a residency, they still come and go. But the vast majority of some of this violence is definitely people that come and go more regularly. And they're very, very difficult for us to keep track of. I mean, there was a few names that are coming up in this investigation that I hadn't heard the name. And that's pretty uncommon not to even hear of the name or the nickname or the moniker or the street name or, you know, so yeah, it's very, very fluid. It's extremely fluid. And I follow Chicago. I make sure I look and I check every day. I mean, I know that's Chicago and this is Burlington, but when we have that many people that are involved in this much violence from there, I mean, an example, holiday weekend, 61 shootings, 9 killed. So that's one weekend. You know, there was 2 killed in Davenport this weekend. So, you know, I try to keep myself informed as to what's going on around us and try to pay attention to those names and see if there's any connections that we can make that way too. So anyway, I know it's brief.
You know, I think we want to make this clear. We're not against people from Chicago. If they're willing to come here and work, come on.
And
But
that's,
if you're going to come here and
Yeah, I
cause
know some
trouble,
wonderful people from Chicago that
stay
are here
away.
doing it.
and I'd say
We
that's,
just got a
the
problem with
vast majority are coming here to get away from the violence.
Yeah.
And they're coming here to make a good life for themselves and their children. And I've talked to literally hundreds of them in that situation.
And
That are
that's
really,
great.
truly, truly good people. And they're truly trying to make a difference in their families' lives.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's just some things that get drug along with that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So,
It really is, yeah.
yeah, thank you,
Thank you,
Chief.
Chief.
But thanks.
Thank you.
City Manager, you got anything else?
Eggs and Issues, first Eggs and Issues is this Saturday at 7:30 a.m. at the Chamber. This would be probably a good session to be as involved as you can. This legislative session will be much different than the past one, just because the dynamics have switched so dramatically from from the current session that just finished to the one that will be coming up in January.
Did he talk to you, by the way?
No.
No?
So the more contact that we can have with our legislators this time around, all times, but this time around specifically, the better.
Okay. If nothing else then, always come to visit beautiful Burlington. Rob Sussman got married here. You can too. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thanks.